looks like we're all here. So welcome everyone to the July 15th, 2020 regular meeting of the San Mateo County Harbor District. Melanie, can you do roll call, please?
Commissioner Brennan?
Here.
Commissioner Chang-Karali?
Present.
Commissioner Lorenas?
Commissioner Lorenas is just joining the meeting.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Lorenas?
I don't see him.
I think the audio is still
trying
syncing.
to join.
Oh, okay. I saw him for
Oh,
a
there he
second.
is.
Commissioner Lorenas?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, yep.
We're doing roll call.
Yep. Commissioner
Here.
Eyring?
Present.
Commissioner Matoush?
Here.
Thank you. Thanks, Melanie. We'll start this evening with public comments, and each member of the public will be given 2 minutes to speak on topics not on the agenda this evening. So please, you can raise your hand in the participants. Yeah, or if I see you. Lizzie, normally there's a function under participants where participants are able to click something to raise their hand, and that doesn't show up for me tonight.
Okay, so as a reminder, if anyone could please go to the participants icon, you would click it and it would come up with a raise hand function. If you're joining us by phone, the way to raise your hand would be *9. I don't see anyone joining us by phone right now.
Okay. So, Commissioner,
I believe LEEF is trying to make a comment.
Yeah, there's someone, LEEF. She's trying to make a comment. So if we could unmute her for public comment. It looks like that. I can't tell.
Am I unmuted now?
We can hear you
hi,
now.
yes. Please go ahead. Your name is.
Thank you. Lemoyne Fernandez. I'm a third generation Californian. I've been a resident and voter here in San Mateo County for 26 years. Currently, I live 3 houses from Alcatraz Beach on Half Moon Bay. And I'm very interested in what the Harbor Commission does. But what I'd like to comment about is your last meeting. And just to let you know that I have seen the email that was sent by Commissioner Latouche to Sabrina Brennan. It was pornographic and disgusting. I don't understand why anyone who was running for office or who currently holds office would send such an email to any board member, and I think any board member would be outraged to receive it. I think at the very least, Commissioner Latouche should be reprimanded in some way or receive what happened last week, maybe even to resign. I mean, it's just unbecoming of a public servant and someone who's paid by taxpayers to be sending out that kind of material. It's really outrageous. So I hope the commissioners will pay attention to public outrage and do something. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I see a hand raised, Brent Turner. You need to unmute.
You've been unmuted for comment.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your work here. I'm coming in tonight to plead the case for closing down the harbor during these times of the pandemic spike. I've had conversation with your general manager and others, and it seems like the grand consensus from the community is different than what we're seeing as far as action from the harbor. unfortunately, we're just going to have to do our best to stop this spike, or this thing is going to get so far out of control that we may risk the entire situation at the harbor. So I would implore you to please allow for this weekend for the tenants to be around, but we need to close down this weekend. It's an emergency. The statistics are dire, and we have a moment here where we can really set example for the rest of the state. And unfortunately, the county has been hesitating, but today there is news that either the governor or the locals are going to be moving forward with closing further. So hopefully this all comes in and we can be a leader on this because there's so many lives on the line, and this particular death is not like a regular death. It's a grueling death that will completely rip apart the fabric of our community. And so out of sensitivity to the communities of color who are hit hardest by this, and everyone that comes to enjoy the harbor, please close the harbor immediately. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Melanie, can you remove the timer? There, thank you. Do we have any other members of the public who wish to speak?
President Reiring, I don't see any more comments at this time, but I did just perform a test and it appears that the raise hand function is available to participants.
Okay, great. That's good to know. Thanks, Lizzie. Well, if I don't hear from anyone or see any raised hand, I think we'll move on, excuse me, from public comment tonight. Before we move to the consent calendar, there was a public comment at our last meeting regarding a concern about holding too many special meetings this year. So I looked into that claim, and my first year on the board, Commissioner Brennan, as president, called for 29 special meetings during her 8 months as president. And I'm pleased to report that as of July this year, we've only held 5 special meetings, and this is during a pandemic. In addition, the Zoom platform is a success in terms of public participation. On June 17th, for a regular meeting, we had as many as 26 people signed on, including staff and board members. That number far exceeds attendance at any board meeting I've experienced during my 1.5 years here on the board. And at our special meeting on July 2nd, we had as many as 57 attendees, and this was a meeting held during the day. So part of my job as president is to set the tone of the meeting. And I want tonight to address ongoing attempts by Commissioner Brennan to undermine and disrupt her own agency. There are 3 particular recent efforts on her part that I will address. First is a false narrative she is putting forward about the Harbor District's flying of the pride flag. The second are her allegations condemning the board for voting to end the Shaw investigation. And the third is a response to her unfounded allegations that the district has violated the Brown Act. Regarding the pride flag, the facts are that Commissioner Brennan approached our general manager at the end of June to ask him to fly the pride flag. Our GM responded positively to her request and the flag was flown. We later learned that the way the flag was flown was in violation of the federal flag code, as the flag's size, height, and position are carefully regulated. So in order to conform to the code, the flag was repositioned. I was not involved with, and I have no personal knowledge of any community complaint regarding the flag. To the extent that Commissioner Brennan alleges that I did, her allegation is wrong and ill-informed. In her narrative, Brennan also claims she was blocked from speaking at a Harbor District meeting. She was not and never has been blocked or dropped at a Harbor District meeting. She claimed to have had technical difficulties during the June meeting, but the Harbor District provides a backup phone number to join the meeting in the event of such difficulties, and the public has used that number. For her own reasons, Commissioner Brennan chose not to avail herself of this option. On a personal note, I serve on an equity and inclusion committee on another board, and I fully support gay rights and the rights of all underserved groups. Brennan can cite no statement or action ever made by me that disparages any minority, nor the LGBTQ community in particular. Commissioner Brennan's allegations and innuendo that there is homophobia at the Harbor District is pure fabrication. Commissioners and staff at the Harbor District are uniformly supportive of matters related to equity and inclusion. This is not Commissioner Brennan's personal purview, but her efforts to make unilateral decisions instead of working with the board, her endless disparaging of fellow commissioners, and her striving for her own personal agenda rather than the public good and the good of the Harbor District are inappropriate. Inappropriate in the best of times, and even more so during a global pandemic. The second matter I wish to lay to rest this evening is regarding the termination of the Shaw investigation. On June 15th, the board terminated an investigation related to claims by Sabrina Brennan that the board retaliated against her for filing a sexual harassment claim last year against the district. Workplace harassment, sexual or otherwise, is unacceptable behavior. We at the Harbor District have strict policies against it, and we take every good faith claim of harassment seriously, and we investigate every legitimate claim. But at the very least, a legitimate claim of harassment or retaliation must allege behavior that, if true, is unlawful or a violation of district policy. Commissioner Brennan claims that the board retaliated against her by removing her as president and from committees. It is true that the board voted to remove Commissioner Brennan as president last year. And it is true that she is no longer serving on committees. So we do not need to waste resources to have an investigator tell us that. And the facts do not amount to harassment or retaliation under the law, and they are not in violation of our policy. Voting to replace an officer or remove board members from committees is part of governing. It is not harassment, and it cannot be harassment because changes in leadership and direction are part of governing. Circumstances have changed a lot since Commissioner Brennan made the retaliation complaint last year. We're now working during a global pandemic, civil unrest, and a bleak economic outlook. We have family, friends, and neighbors who are impacted by all these things. While these challenging circumstances would never prevent us from investigating facts that could implicate harassment or retaliation, they should stop us from wasting taxpayer money to investigate facts that we know to be true, but are not harassment or retaliation. And finally, I note that Commissioner Brennan has now begun to file baseless claims alleging that the district is violating the Brown Act. Simply put, these allegations completely lack merit. The board values the public's role in conducting the district's business, and the board upholds the values promoted by the Brown Act. The commission engages outside counsel who reviews board action and agenda items to assure that all of our activities conform to the Brown Act. Since I have been president, I have followed all of our council's directions on these issues to the letter. I personally hold high the principles of open meetings as codified by the Brown Act and implementing regulations of the FPPC. And I personally strive to assure that the commission conforms to these standards. So during my term as president, and as long as I am on the board, I will work to assure that we continue to follow the Brown Act. As president of the Harbor District Commission and as a representative of the taxpayers of San Mateo County, I'm asking Commissioner Sabrina Brennan to stop her incessant efforts to play the victim, to malign her fellow commissioners, and to undermine our agency. Jim, I'd like to ask if you could please post these comments on our website after the meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. We will now move to our consent calendar. Do I have a motion to, Commissioner Chang-Crawley.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Commissioner Brennan?
I had my hand raised. I just wanted to point out that I am using the hand raise icon. And I think that first I'd like to say that I'd want to remove items from consent. Those items are item 1, item 5, item 8, and item 9. And I believe that there'll probably be other items that another commissioner wants to remove. So I think it's always polite to ask commissioners first if they'd like to remove any items before there is a motion to approve consent. So I'd appreciate it if going forward you could give us an opportunity to pull items from consent. I'd also like to mention that the public can also pull items off consent if they wish. So that's just a bit of public information there. And I think that the comments that were just made by
Commissioner Brennan, we're not going to discuss those comments. It's inappropriate that those items are not on the agenda this evening. And so we'll move. There is a motion which I will second to go through the consent items. Commissioner, let's see, wait a minute. First, I think that Commissioner Lorenis had his hand raised. He wants to also pull some consent items. Commissioner Lorenis.
Yes, I do. Thank you. I'd like to pull 2, 3, 4, and 10.
Great. All right, so I will second, well, wait, that's all of them, right? So let me look at this.
No, it's not all of them.
Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, that's all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, not 6 and 7. All right, so I'm going to second the motion to approve consent items 6 and 7. So Melanie, roll call.
Commissioner Chang-Crawley,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenis,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryring,
Aye.
Commissioner Mateusz,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan.
Aye.
So we'll start with consent item bills and claims. Sabrina, you pulled this item.
I did pull this item. So I wanted to talk about the legal fees. And first, I'd like to point out that while we were doing really well with our legal fees, we have had quite an increase. So I just wanted to bring that to the board's attention. And I also wanted to point out that to date, apparently, we have paid the Shaw Law Group that was terminated in closed session by Commissioner Waring, Corrali, and Mateusz. I assume. We've paid them $4,102.25 to conduct a retaliation investigation that was terminated before they could interview Commissioners Mateusz, Waring, and Chang-Corrali. So that was unfortunately a waste of money. I spent a lot of my time being interviewed by the investigator who was doing an excellent job. And when she contacted the other commissioners to set up interviews, that was on June 10th, within 5 days, less than 5 days, they had scheduled a special meeting to meet in closed session and terminate the investigator. So there was no investigation into my retaliation complaint. And my retaliation complaint was substantiated by the Palo Alto Daily Post in comments that Commissioner Chang Corrali made herself when she stated that the reason that I was removed as board president was because of my complaint, which was a sexual harassment complaint initially about Commissioner Tom Mateusz, because he sent me pornographic photos and a whole lot of other things.
All right, thank you for your comments, Commissioner Brennan. So are we going to grandstand? Is that why we're pulling all these items tonight, so that we can grandstand over every single agenda item? I see what's happening. Okay, so anybody else have comments about that agenda item? If not, I think Melanie, Commissioner Chang Corrali.
I'd like to make a motion to approve bills and claims.
Of item number 1?
Yes, item number 1.
Okay, Commissioner Mateusz?
Second.
Roll call, Melanie?
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryring,
Aye.
Commissioner Mateusz,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan,
Aye.
Commissioner Chang Corrali.
Aye.
Great. Commissioner Brennan, you pulled the minutes. I will ask you to please stay on topic regarding the minutes if possible.
I did not pull the minutes.
Item number 2.
Item number 2 was pulled by Commissioner Lorenz.
Oh, okay, Commissioner Lorenz, item number 2.
Yes. I pulled all of the minutes because I'd like to say that I can't agree to codify these because the minutes don't reflect any of the public comments. There's no, all 3 of the minutes that are on the consent agenda don't say anything about what was said either by the commissioners or by the public. And that's been traditionally done in the past. That's kind of redundant. So I'd like to say that in the future, maybe we could continue to do that because it is a record for the public to see. It does continue the trend that I'm seeing. So I'll discuss that trend in my commissioner comments later. But I'm just not going to approve these for that reason.
So Commissioner Brennan, you have a comment about the minutes?
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with Commissioner Lorenz and point out that in the past we have indicated public comment out of respect for the public. So I don't know at what point that changed, but I do support recognizing public comment in the minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Commissioner Chang Corrali? Did you have a comment?
No, I was just going to make a motion to approve items 2, 3, and 4, which are the minutes for these meetings.
Great, I'll second that. Melanie, can you do roll call, please?
Commissioner Chang Corrali,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
No.
Commissioner Ryring,
Aye, yes.
Commissioner Mateusz,
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan.
No.
So I'm moving on to item number 5. Was that Sabrina or Ed who pulled that one? I think it was Commissioner Brennan.
It was Commissioner Brennan.
Great. Commissioner Brennan, item number 5.
Yeah, I was hoping that we could get an update from Mr. Moran on capital improvement projects that are happening around the harbor. We haven't heard much lately. Particularly curious about what's going on with the renovation of the harbor master's office at Pillar Point Harbor. renovations on Johnson Pier and any plans for improvements at the tenant's restroom facility, those types of things. I was hoping we could get an update.
Yes, I'd be happy to give the board an update on the current capital improvement projects. I'll start with the Postponed Harbor Master's Office Alterations project, which was initiated October 2017. The board approved a low bid December 18th of 2019. So just in mid December of 19, the low bid was approved. The notice of award was sent to CWS Construction, Inc., which was the low bidder. Project was slowed a little bit due to COVID, but the project has been coming along quite well. We anticipate the project being completed this month. Yesterday, myself and Pillar Point Harbor Master Chris Tibby met with the architectural firm to create a final punch list of items still need to be addressed by the contractor, but it's all overall looking quite well. We also, as not part of that project, but kind of as a result of that project, we are replacing the electronic access control system, which will benefit not only that building, but make our restrooms more secure for the tenants and the public as well. I believe you also, Commissioner Brennan, wanted to discuss the Johnson Pier project. That was initiated to reconfigure the terminus at Johnson Pier and replace the 30-year-old H-dock and the fuel dock as well. That was initiated January of 2017. We've been working through challenges with that project, and we've had a couple public meetings with the tenant stakeholders, and Moffitt and Nickel, the design engineering team that was brought on, facilitated those meetings. We had a project update presentation December 18th of 2019, and we have now delayed the project due to the required prioritization because of COVID budget concerns. So we're actively looking for, continuing to look for grant funding for that project so that it could resume.
Thank you, John.
Can you explain the delay a little bit more? I didn't quite catch that. So we're delayed because of COVID right now, the construction?
Yes, and the preliminary budget, based on all the work that we've done to prioritize projects, it would appear that we do not currently have funding to progress with that project. So it appears we're going to be delaying the project until funding is sourced.
So this is everything about the pier renovation is being put on hold. Is that what you're saying?
That's the way it's looking at present. It's going to be discussed more on the 24th with the full board at a special meeting regarding the prioritization of our capital improvement projects and the overall budget.
Okay. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate that.
Thank you, John. Are we ready to move on to item number 8, which I believe Commissioner Brennan pulled? Commissioner Chen-Crowley?
So we don't have to make a motion on this, right?
I think we're just probably at the end going to make one motion. don't we
Okay,
think?
great. Thank you.
Agenda item number 8. Does anyone have any comments?
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So to clarify with regard to the Director of Operations update that we just got, that's not an item that we need to vote on. So I was just pointing that out. It was just a report. But with regard to item 8, which is publicly available salary schedules and special compensation, I was hoping we could get a update on information about this from Julie.
Yes, President Ryring, commissioners, let me just bring this item up. Going paperless is challenging at times.
And I think, Julie, this material and information is available in our packets, and we do expect all the commissioners to have read their packets in advance. And so you could just give a very brief synopsis if you'd like.
Yes, basically all members of CalPERS, all member agencies are required to ensure that pay schedules and special compensation included in the retirement wage calculations are publicly available as prescribed by the California Code of Regulations. Publicly available is defined as posted at the office of the employer or immediately accessible and available for public review from the employer during normal business hours or posted on the employer's website. Attachment 1 of the staff report contains the district's pay schedule and includes negotiated cost of living increases. Operating engineers have negotiated 3.25% increases. Teamsters negotiated 3%. And then additionally, on July 18th, 2018, this commission approved that unrepresented employees, the managers of the district, also not necessarily receive a 3% increase, but that the low range and the high range of the salary schedule is increased by the 3% to prevent compaction of the salary schedule, in which we would have union members making more than management eventually. The actual increase to the manager's salary is dependent on the general manager's implementation or not implementation of that. The general manager's salary is not included in this staff report. That is done on an annual basis, usually tied in with general manager's performance. This is required by CalPERS that the board approve these salary schedules.
Thank you, Julie. Commissioner Lorenz, you have your hand up.
Hello.
You're live.
Thank you. I would like to just point out one thing is often when a commissioner such as myself pulls something from the agenda, it's not a blanket statement that says that I have not read the item and that I'm not prepared to discuss it. I will pull something from the agendas so that I can point out specific items and ideas and concepts and perhaps questions to the board and also to the public.
Thank you. Commissioner Brennan, you have a comment?
Commissioner
Brennan, you need to unmute.
Okay, so let me start over. The reason I pulled this item is because I thought it was relevant to our discussion item D that was on the agenda, which is item 11, COVID-19 hazard pay. And last I heard, that item had been pulled off the agenda, but I assume it'll be coming back at a future meeting. And so I thought it was important to take a look at the salary schedule because it does relate to item 11, which I assume we'll be hearing at a special meeting, since that's been put off now several meetings. And I think the employees are waiting.
When we have that meeting will be the appropriate time to talk about the salary schedule regarding the hazard pay.
I'm not planning.
It's no longer on tonight's agenda.
Can I be unmuted?
You're not muted.
Okay, good, because it's kind of confusing on my screen. I'm not talking about hazard pay right now, but what I am talking about is taking a look at the schedule so that we understand what the salaries currently are and what they're going to be. So that was the purpose of this. It's just informational, educational. Thank you.
Great, so we'll move on to the next pulled item, which is item 9. Commissioner Lorenz, is that you or is that Commissioner Brennan?
That was Commissioner Brennan.
Commissioner Brennan, item number 9. Unmute, please.
Yeah, so this is an interesting item. Administrative building analysis, build versus lease. And I think we should be reading, this is a note to the chair. I think we should be reading the agenda items that are pulled off consent so people know what we're talking about here. So I did just read that item description. Again, I'll say it, administrative building analysis, build versus lease. Recommendation, refer the administrative building analysis to the Finance Committee. And then there's attached documents related. And then today I got a spreadsheet related to the financial analysis as to whether it's financially more advantageous for the district to build an administrative building or continue to lease space. And I was hoping that we could get an update from Julie on this item.
An update that's different than what is online?
There's a whole staff report, and I was hoping she could give an update so that we'd be educated about it.
Okay, thank you, commissioners. On May 7th, 2019, the Harbor Commission directed the interim general manager to enter into negotiations to purchase a lot on Portola Ave in El Granada from Coast Tide Fire Protection District. On June 5th, 2019, the Harbor District purchased the lot for $1,265,681. A request for proposals for design engineering, architecture, permitting, and construction support service was issued with a proposal deadline of September 27, 2019. On March 16, 2020, a state of emergency was announced due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This event has caused a decrease in expected revenue sources and uncertainty in forecasting assumptions. The district forecasts were updated, and it is anticipated that future funding for capital improvement projects will decrease. On May 14, 2020, a community forum was held to receive input from the general public on the priority of district projects for recommended inclusion in the capital improvement program. The administrative building project was identified as one of the projects to put on hold until a funding source could be identified.
Julie, can I stop you for a second? I appreciate you reading this report out, but I think according to what Commissioner Brennan asked previously is that she wasn't asking, or Commissioner Lorenz, I guess, said that they're not pulling items because they haven't read them. So this is online and they have done their homework, I'm sure, and read this. So I think it would be appropriate to ask the commissioner that pulled the item if there's specific question that she'd like to ask regarding this consent item? Commissioner Brennan?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I am appreciating hearing the staff report, and I think it's important for the public as well. So I'd like to ask Julie to finish what she started in providing us with the staff report. So Julie, could you please provide that information to the board and the public?
Commissioner Brennan, I just would like to point out that we have, if I had known that you and Commissioner Lorenz were going to pull almost every single item on this consent calendar, I would have rearranged the agenda so that Mr. Danis, who was in the waiting room, would have an opportunity to meet with us before we asked our staff to read out fully all of the reports that have been provided to us and are available to the public online.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
So any board member or member of the public can pull an item off consent. That's our right to do that. And there is nothing wrong with staff providing a staff report for an item that's been pulled off consent. In fact, that's standard. And it's also standard to discuss the item if anybody feels like talking about it. So nothing unusual is happening here. Right now, it's 7:12 p.m. We've been having this meeting this evening for 42 minutes. It's not as if this meeting is running into some serious overtime. So I think we have enough time, especially considering there are no discussion items tonight on the agenda. We do have the luxury of time to hear from Julie on what is a very important staff report and a project that is of import to the community.
Thank you, Commissioner Brennan. Julie, I am going to ask you to summarize.
Okay. I'm just going to share the screen that has a summary statement
Great.
on it here. So I'll just go through this. The assumptions that are built into this analysis include an increase in the administrative building lease of 3% per year. That's what's been happening since we've signed the lease. The cost to build a new administrative building is going to be $2,180,000. We know when bids come in that probably will change the amount, but that's what we've been estimating as part of our budget. The expected interest on debt issued is 2%, and the cost of issuing debt is $60,000. Certain government bonds are right now being sold between 1.5% and a 2.4% range. The cost of utilities and maintenance on the new admin building is approximately $24,000 per year, $12,000 for utilities and $12,000 for maintenance. The general rule is you multiply 1% times the total cost of the building to come up with the estimated maintenance number. And so the total costs to build over a 30-year timeline is $3,680,774. That's an estimate. To lease over the same 30-year period is $4,916,800 for estimated savings of $1,236,026.
Yeah, it's significant.
The recommendation here is to refer this analysis to a duly noticed finance committee meeting. And the purpose of the meeting would be to review the assumptions and calculations to form a recommendation for the Harbor Commission to consider at a future meeting.
So Julie, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. This spreadsheet is very helpful, so I thank you for including this. I think it makes the estimated savings clear. But I would suggest moving the estimated savings up to the section where it's about building versus about leasing. because that just the placement of where the estimated savings is located is a little bit confusing. Sorry to be like nitpicky about it.
That would be easy.
Yeah, that's super easy. But this is really helpful. So thank you so much for providing us with this information this evening.
You're welcome.
Awesome.
Thank you, Julie. So I think we're ready to move to the pulled consent item number.
Oh, I think you need
Can
to.
you verify?
Mr. Haggerty has his hand up.
Number 10. Oh, someone has their hand up?
Mr. Haggerty has
Okay,
his
sorry,
hand
I
up.
couldn't see the full screen before. Who is it? It's Dan Haggerty, Mr. Haggerty.
Yes, good evening, commissioners and President Raring. Just wanted to remind the board that whatever is built at the post office lot is very, very important to the community of El Granada. In the past, there has been I have received approximately 250 petitions for a concept plan, which I submitted to Jim, and wanted to make sure that everybody is completely aware that, you know, the one block downtown El Granada is a commercial zone, and it really it's a very sensitive area. There's a lot of concern with what is actually built there. It's my personal opinion that, along with many community members, that there should be some retail element on the first floor, opening up to a open corner, which would give walkability to the community and give a reason for just to fit in with the community. The existing block, there's a lot there, and a lot of concern. So that's about it. Just wanted to remind the board members, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Haggerty. Moving on to pulled consent item number 10. Is this Commissioner Brennan? The item is social media and public outreach services.
I did not pull this item.
Commissioner Lorenz?
I have a couple questions and just a basic comment. I think Fondini has done a great job for us. And my question is this: could you tell me which of these items Fondini will continue to work on? It says that in the report, it says that there's some aspect of this that they're going to continue, and I'm just curious what that is. And then the other question I have is there any, if we're unleashing ourselves from them completely, is there an arrangement where we can use them as consultants if need be, if something goes awry?
Yes, commissioners. There is a table on the staff report, table number 1, and the services that we would like to continue to use Fondini for is Joe Falcone, who is the founder, has developed an automatic email services and automatic weather and tide posting using a system called Zapier. That's custom code. I believe he's charging $65 per month. So it's a nominal fee for that to continue. In addition, if we need further training, he is available to us to provide that. And the outreach portion of the agreement obviously has changed due to the COVID. The outreach and education services will continue to be provided via remote access. And Fondini plans to provide those services using different forms of virtual public outreach, including video tours of Pillar Point Harbor and Oyster Point Marina and Park, using archives of over 2,500 photos, over 300 historical photos, and the videos will include an introduction to the Harbor District, followed by specific information about the harbor and marina history, nature, business, fisheries, recreation, harbor patrol, safety, etc. In addition, video lectures on the fisheries, nature, and history of Pillar Point Harbor and Oyster Point Marina using guides who conducted the tours for the district. These services, of course, are remote. Hopefully, we'll be able to continue with the services that they are providing in person soon. And then as to the second question, which was, can we use them? They still do have some money on their contract. The contract has $22,440. The social media portion of that, Lizzie has done an excellent job in starting to put together content starting on July 1st, content into the different social media platforms, and she'll continue to do that. However, there is a room in the contract if we need to continue to do consulting type of work. And presumably if it's any social media work, that might be within the general manager's limit of, below his limit of $25,000.
Thank you, Julie.
Great, thank you.
I will note that what Julie just did right there is read the staff report that is online. And so in spite of commissioner protestations that they have unique or interesting questions to ask about these consent items, the reason they're put on consent calendar is that we're expected to read this material in advance and understand what the agenda items are speaking to, so that if we do pull them and we do have questions, we have something unusual or interesting or relevant to comment on or query about. So are there any further questions on this agenda item?
Are you speaking to me? Hello?
Any further comments or questions on this agenda item? So, Commissioner
Yes.
Brennan?
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Yes. Thank you for the reprimand. I'd like to point out, like I did when I spoke earlier, that one of the reasons I ask questions is not to elucidate any information I need, but to point out specific things to the public. So once again, I'll say this again and again. I ask questions sometimes because I don't understand something on the agenda, but I also ask questions so that we can talk about this in such a way that we can inform our public. They don't always have the time or even the stamina to go through all our reports. And so when I see something that I think is important to point out to the public, I pull the agenda and I ask the question, even if I might know the answer. Thank you.
Commissioner Brennan, you have your hand up.
Hi. Yeah, I'd just like to say that I appreciate Julie's report. I found it informative and useful, and I hope the public learned something from it as well. I think that it's been great having social media. It's still relatively a new thing for the Harbor District. And I think it's been very beneficial in educating the public about what we do. And I'm glad to hear that we've got a strong team. We've got people available, as needed, and look forward to seeing some of those archival photos. I know we've got some really cool images, quite a few that I've never even seen. And I think it would be great for those to get out there for public consumption. And I also wanted to say that I think that the board president's continual reprimanding of commissioners is unprofessional. Thank you.
Commissioner Mateusz, you have your hand raised. You need to unmute.
Commissioner Mateusz, you've been sent a request to unmute your microphone.
All right. I'd like to approve all the agenda items that we have just discussed right now.
Do we have a second? Commissioner Chang-Karali? Unmute.
I'll second, but can I just make one quick comment? I just want to thank Lizzie for all of the great work she's doing. I do think that what she's doing helps connect the Harbor District with the community. So thank you, Lizzie. I am seconding Tom's motion.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Brennan, you have a question?
I was going to second the motion, but it's already been done.
Great, thank you. Roll call, Melanie.
Commissioner Brennan, Commissioner Brennan,
Are we voting on all the consent items?
Other than the two that we've already voted to approve.
so items 5 through 10.
Yes, that's right.
There's a motion.
We're not voting on items 1, 2, 3, 4, or 4. Is that correct?
We already did.
We have voted for those.
Okay. So we're voting on items 5 through 10. I'm sorry. Is that what I heard?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Aye.
Commissioner Chang-Karali,
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz,
Aye.
Commissioner Ryring,
Aye.
Commissioner Mateusz.
Aye.
Great. Thank you very much. So the next item on the agenda is a closed session conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation. Do I have a motion to move to closed session? Commissioner Mateusz. Unmute? Yeah. Commissioner Mateusz?
You're
I'm asking
unmuted for
for a
comment.
motion to move to closed session. And so we'll move on to item F, commissioner comments. Commissioners, you have 2 minutes to make comments. Please raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment. Commissioner Brennan, go ahead. You need to unmute.
So I first have a question because the board president, Nancy Raring, made a very lengthy commissioner comment at the beginning of the meeting. I'd like to make sure that we all get equal time with our commissioner comments. which she has rearranged to the end of the meeting and following closed session. So I'd just like to make sure that there's going to be fairness in what is a rather unfair situation where the board president is choosing to reprimand commissioners throughout the meeting, and particularly at the beginning of the meeting with all kinds of unfounded information. I want to make sure that we all are being treated equally and getting the same length of time for our commissioner comments. So could I get clarity on that from the board president?
Yes, I was not making commissioner comments. I was setting the tone of the meeting, and I was responding to allegations that you've been making about the Harbor District and board members specifically. So it's not commissioner comments.
It was an attack is what it was. So you attacked a fellow commissioner at the beginning of the meeting, and you used your privilege as board president inappropriately. So I'm fine with waiting for others to make their comments first. I just wanted to get that point of information clear.
Does anyone have a commissioner comment? Commissioner Chan-Crowley?
Hi, yes, a couple of quick things. One, just a friendly reminder to people who are on the line, or if you're going to be watching this, to please return your census if you have not done that. We're doing great as a county, but we just want to make sure everyone's counted. Number two, this week there was an article in the San Mateo Daily Journal that the city of South San Francisco has matched, I think, the Transportation Authority's funds to do a feasibility study for ferry transportation across San Francisco Bay at Oyster Point. So, Jim, I'm not sure. I'm sure you've been in touch with them. I'm not sure, though, for sure. But if you are, if you could just let them know that we're very happy with that outcome, and that we're looking forward to partnering with the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Brennan?
I asked to go last, so if anyone else has commissioner comments, can I go after them?
I don't see any other hands raised. Commissioner Lorenz.
Well, I have 2 minutes, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, well, I'll try to get this through in 2 minutes. So during our May regular meeting, I referenced a recent report by the Academy of Arts and Sciences on tools to enhance democracy. And I called on our board to read and implement some of its recommendations. What I've seen tonight is just an acceleration of what I was complaining about in my last commissioner comment, which I'll state again. I said this board, and especially its board president, are systematically suppressing dissent from the public and from commissioners. The public's ability to exert any meaningful influence on this board's action is rapidly approaching zero. You'll find my full letter in the information packet. I think it's somewhere to be found either on our website or on the packet that was sent out. So that's that. Number two, we received, I think you can see these pages. Commissioners received a stack of policy that were approved by the board with very little input from the public and almost no input from the commissioners. This is one of my points. We also received an empty envelope. By the way, I have no idea how much time I have, so if you could let me know, that would be helpful. We also received an empty envelope with no explanation why. I did discover by reading this policy that we're supposed to sign it and turn it in. Well, this document is badly written, flawed, and I, as a commissioner, can't sign it. The other documents that are here also suffer from the same problem. And I have to say that reading through these, every commissioner on this board should be reprimanded for one item on this or the other. So I suggest that the board start with reprimanding me and then work their way down the list. Because if you read through this, and members of I assume these are available to the members of the public, if they read these, they will discover that that's the case. Now, just to give you a somewhat trivial example of why this document is flawed, let me read this to you. This is conduct at public meetings for commissioners. They shall refrain from interrupting other speakers, making personal comments not germane to the business of the board. Now, I believe that what this document was actually trying to say is that commissioners should refrain from making personal comments, period. Not when they feel it's germane to some item on the board agenda. So that's just one trivial example, but there are others on this. So once again, I call for this board, especially the board president, to notice meetings where we're doing relevant work that's important to the public, notice them such that the public can attend, but also all of the commissioners, so that we can do the detailed work that we should do to provide the public and ourselves with well-written, well-vetted documents. Thank you.
Oops, is that it? Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Brennan?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm clear.
Okay, I'd like to start my comments now. So just before the June 4th, 2020, 1 p.m. special meeting with 24 hours notice, Board President Nancy Raring instructed General Manager Jim Pruitt to remove public comment at the opening of the meeting and to remove commissioner comments from the June 4th, 2020 special meeting. So I'd just like to note that that was a Brown Act violation. I'd also like to say that this may have been the first time an elected representative was censured for complaining about sexual harassment by a fellow board member this meeting on June 4th. The board member who sexually harassed Commissioner Brennan, me, on multiple occasions cast the deciding vote to censure me, which makes the censure ridiculous. On June 10th, 2020, Shaw Law Group emailed Commissioners Nancy Raring, Tom Mateusz, Virginia Chain-Corrali, and Ed Lorenis to schedule a retaliation investigation interviews the following week. So they were setting interviews with each of these commissioners. They had already interviewed me. On June 15th, so a few days later, at 1:30 p.m., a special meeting was called. This meeting also included Brown Act violations and a conflict of interest by 3 commissioners. Item B, no public comment allowed for items not on the agenda. No commissioner comments for items not on the agenda. Item C, no case or claims were brought by Sabrina Brennan. See June 29th, 2020 email below from Lori Millwall. Anyway, that's reflected in an email. 4 harbor commissioners met in closed session and Brennan recused herself. In closed session, the board directed counsel to direct the general manager to terminate the Shaw Law Group and to terminate an active retaliation investigation. The Shaw Law Group was hired by the district's general manager to conduct an investigation into Brennan's 2019 retaliation complaint. The 3 board members the retaliation complaint was against attended the closed session. Nothing was reported out of closed session. On June 15th, 2020 at 5:23 p.m., General Manager Jim Pruitt emailed the Shaw Law Group to terminate the retaliation complaint investigation services as directed by the board. On July 2nd, 2020 at 1 p.m., a special meeting was called with 24 hours notice to cure and correct a Brown Act violation at a previous meeting where members of the public had been cut off and not allowed to speak their full allotted 2 minutes worth of public comment. The board received a letter from a law firm, Kanata, O'Toole, Fix, and Olson, and that letter demanded a cure and correct. So that was the cause of that special meeting. And the reason was because the censure was done improperly. The Brown Act Cure and Correct provided members of the public with an opportunity to make public comment on June 4th, 2020, censure agenda item. On July 2nd, 2020, the Harbor District General Manager refused to publish mine, written comments with the July 2nd, 2020 meeting agenda. That was also a Brown Act violation, which thankfully is in the process of being corrected. So I appreciate that. So there isn't time for me to go into all of the problems here, but we have a transparency problem. We have a problem adhering to the Brown Act. I have not seen this board in the almost 8 years that I've been serving have this level of Brown Act problems, and it's unacceptable. It has become an amateur show, and we need to pull our act together, and we need to start observing transparency laws and following the Brown Act. So I encourage everyone to take this seriously and to start following the law. There has been a complaint made by a number of people with the district attorney, and the district attorney is working with the district to try to correct these problems. Thank you.
President Reiring, I wanted to clear the record, just to make it really clear that for special meetings, the Brown Act does not require general public comment regarding items that are not on the agenda. A special meeting is limited only to items on the agenda. And then also with respect to posting written materials, that does not relate to items that are not on the agenda. So I just wanted to make those two things clear for the record.
Thank you. The reason that the board agendized the Cure and Correct meeting was to address a Brown Act violation. So what our attorney just said is not accurate. Secondarily, there is a clear opinion and recommendation by a respected law firm that board members should be able to submit comments, as should the public, and those need to be made publicly available on the district's website in advance of the meeting. And so, unfortunately, our general counsel is not interpreting the law within the spirit of the Brown Act. And I think that's a sad thing for the district, and we've not had that problem in the past. And I would encourage our counsel to err on the side of transparency and the side of always acting in the spirit of the Brown Act. Thank you.
Commissioner Mateusz, you had your hand raised.
Just like to take this opportunity to say that Commissioner Sabrina Brennan continues to be a pathological liar. And she and I worked closely on my campaign. She saw an email and she asked me to send that to her. And now she's attempting to monetize that through an extortion of the district. This is not Commissioner Brennan's first extortion. One has to only contact the district attorney and the FBI. She was successful on one extortion, and she will continue to comment her operate as she does. And if her former extortion person ever comes forward, this will be laid out. She also has problems with violence on gays, as could be documented with the San Mateo County Harbor or San Mateo County Sheriffs. And she continues to try and harass me to make money.
Thank you. Tricia, I'd like to ask you how much back and forth. I mean, these are supposed to be comments. These are things that aren't on the agenda. I don't think that we allow back and forth on this. Is that right?
I think it's good just to let each commissioner make their comments and then move on.
Move on. So we've had commissioner comments by everybody. We're going to move to the next item, which is future agenda items. And I do have a future agenda item. I propose a future agenda item to establish a policy whereby the district does not post on its website with the agenda written materials submitted by a commissioner about a matter that is not related to an item for discussion on the agenda. And I request that staff prepare this policy for our consideration at the next meeting. Do I have a second? Commissioner Chang-Corrali?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Melanie, roll call, please.
Commissioner Brennan?
We should have an opportunity to discuss the motion. So I'd like to do that. I am certainly not going to vote to suppress and silence commissioners. I don't think that that's at all appropriate. And we have a long history at this district of publishing written comments from members of the public, from the Half Moon Bay Seafood Marketing Association, from commissioners, from whoever submits them. And that is consistent with the Brown Act. So
I suggest that we debate the merits of the future agenda item when it's on the agenda.
So
this is just to get it on the agenda.
Correct.
So I'm commenting so people understand my vote, and I'm going to be voting no on this. Thank you.
Any other comments? Then Melanie, can you do roll call, please?
Commissioner Brennan?
No.
Commissioner Chang-Corrali?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Yes.
Commissioner Ryring?
Yes.
Commissioner Matoush?
Aye.
Great, so the motion carries. And we move to June activity reports from the general manager, operations manager, and admin. Thank you so much for your work on these, for your work on these reports, Jim, John, and Julie. I just want to give another shout out to Deputy Harbor Masters McGeehan and Robertson again for their rescue actions with the overturned kayaker at what could have been a tragic incident if Deputy Harbor Master Robertson had not spoken to the kayakers before they departed and given them the duty phone number. Are there any comments on the June activity reports? No comments? So I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Commissioner Chang-Corrali.
I'll move to adjourn.
Commissioner Matoush.
Second.
Great. Melanie, roll call, please.
Commissioner Chang-Corrali?
Aye.
Commissioner Lorenz?
Aye.
Commissioner Ryring?
Aye.
Commissioner Matoush?
Aye.
Commissioner Brennan?
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.